Hi, I'm Josh. I was born in poverty-laden Flint, Michigan to a blue-collar working family. I went from pulling weeds, washing dishes, and delivering pizzas to building a small business doing over $150,000 a month. I sold it and moved to Costa Rica with my wife and 4 kids. And on this podcast, we explore the secrets and the strategies that I used to win. Building your business is one of the hardest things you will ever do. So let me finally help you automate, grow, and someday sell your company. Hey everybody, Josh here with the Quick Talk Podcast. I am excited. I'm excited to talk to you. I have a guest on the line with a multi-gajillion dollar business. No, I'm just kidding. But it is multi-millions. They have 50 crews, 135 employees, and he has a software company. Why do people always start software companies? Anyway, we'll get into that in a minute. But I got Jonathan on the line. And Jonathan's last name is a disaster, but I'm gonna go for it, John. It's Pototschnik.
You got it. As close as anyone gets it.
Nailed it. I wrote it in like a alliteration, so it was easier to read. But how are you, my friend? Thank you.
I'm doing great.
You're busy.
Gosh. Yeah, busy, but just like you. So thrilled to be chatting with you.
Well, tell us a brief nutshell version of going back in time before you started the lawn care business. Not even sure the name of it, but it's huge now. It was zero at some point. What happened leading up to the zero to get you into that business?
I started a lawn mowing business when I was 14, and my mom drove me around from home to home. We lived in the country, so she drove me into town, mowed lawns, figured out that I couldn't imagine anything else to do that would make such good money. So I became hooked, and I ended up building a little lawn care business, had a couple employees in high school, and did a bunch of other stuff, but that turned me into an entrepreneur. And from there, I got the desire to be in business for myself, ended up getting my degree in technology and software, and lived in the software world. Really, I've been living in the software world since I was 21. And that's where my degree's at. And I was doing computer consulting, and I just really wanted to build bigger businesses where things weren't relying on me. So I've done a whole lot of stuff over the years, but that's what got me started. So I was actually out of the lawn care business from my freshman year of college until 2005, when I started what's now called CitiTurf.
Okay, cool. So you started the app and then you went back into the lawn care business, and then that's where you really took it serious and put systems in place and built a real company. Is that right?
Well, actually slightly different than that. So I was doing computer consulting, and I was helping out one of my good friends back in the 8th grade that had moved away. He had recently founded with a couple partners a commercial cleaning company. And they were niched in they were about to be niched in the movie theater cleaning industry. He asked me if I'd become a partner with them in that business. That's around 2003. So I'm doing that. I'm still doing computer consulting. Along the way, I start the lawn care company. And then Service Autopilot, the software company, that did not come about until 2009. And
Gotcha.
That came out of the pain of trying to find a technology solution for the cleaning company and the lawn care company, and thinking of where I wanted these businesses to go and how I wanted them to run. I looked at everything in the marketplace and I thought, there's an opportunity here. And so that's how that came about. And so in the different businesses I've been involved in, I've always had completely different partners. So my partner in Service Autopilot, his name's John, and he and I got together and we started Service Autopilot. So that's again around 2009.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about that later too, because that's a whole conversation there. So was your family entrepreneurial? I mean, you're a 14-year-old mowing lawns, have tons of cash, right? Not really a business yet, but you're just cranking it. You're young. Then you go to school. How did you become a business owner with the right type of executive mentality rather than just get trapped like so many people do inadvertently? Good people, smart people, hardworking people. How did you know the difference? Who taught you that? When did the light bulb go on how to build these systems in real businesses?
Well, all the light bulbs came on after going through the pain. Initially, the light bulb was, wow, I can make $60. I was making about $45 to $60 an hour in high school mowing lawns with my helpers, my employees. And at the time, I think minimum wage was in the $4 range back in those days. And that was the light bulb. My parents, so there's a couple things I believe. And one of them I've applied to my kids. And that is, my parents at the time couldn't afford to buy me a car. They really were doing fine. My dad was an artist, but they didn't have an abundance of money. And so my parents had me buy my own car. I bought a lot of my own stuff. And so that was a massive contributing factor, which is exactly what I'm now doing with my kids, even though there's no financial constraint. And it's magic. My 14-year-old is like gung ho about everything business because he's got his sight set on a car. So now looking back, I think that was one of the magic bullets. The other one was that my dad's an artist, and so he worked from a studio at our home. So growing up, I never saw him go to an office. I never saw him go to a job. And I believe that now, again, looking back, that had a huge impact on me. I didn't assume I had to go get a job. I just never, that wasn't the world I lived in. It's like my dad does what he wants to do. I could do what I want to do. And so combine that with wanting to make money before I was old enough to get a job, seeing that it was acceptable to not go work somewhere, that was the magic, I believe. And so then earning my first money that first year and realizing, and I saved enough money in my first year of 14, 15-year-old to buy my first car. And that doomed me for the rest of my life to entrepreneurship.
Drop the mic, walk off the stage. No, that's so cool, John. I mean, can I call you John, by the way?
You can call me whatever. I usually go by Jonathan, but I'll answer to either one.
Well, okay, I'll go Jonathan. Because for me, when people call me Joshua, it's when they're really mad at me. So, I thought maybe John was who you were, but when your wife's irritated.
My dad's John, so all these years growing up, I've always been the Jonathan.
Okay, got it. But the stuff you just said is so awesome. So freaking awesome. And actually, the last episode that was released was with Brandon Vaughn on my podcast. And Brandon, his dad had a business for 32 years, never broke 100K. Nice little, self-employed situation. And then he took it over and in 4 years took it to 1.3 million because he had a different mentality. And there's a whole long, history there and listeners can go back and listen to that. But one thing that he said that you just said was when he grew up, he bought his own school clothes. He bought his own car. He had to take care of himself. And even when you're a kid and that might feel like unfair or you go to school and your friends have all this stuff, that is like the raw material being placed in your brain to make you take responsibility for your life. I think it's amazing. And you just said the same thing. So that's like a trend. That's a trend. And my son, Maverick, he started a candy business, the little quarter machines for candy. He had 5 machines when he was 7 years old. We built it up, ran it for almost a year, and he sold that business to some other kids. And it's like when the child earns that money, that is really when the light bulb goes on. The day he sold that, he got $1,200, which is like $100 million, exit
incredible.
To a 7-year-old.
I listened to that podcast. I thought it was excellent. I love it. I think that's the magic. It's one of the greatest gifts my parents ever gave me. Of course, as a kid, you're like, oh, geez, I wish it could be like, the other kids in the school that were all getting the cool cars. But at the same time, I think I sort of realized it then. Not really. I mean, not like I do now, but looking back, it's one of the greatest gifts they ever gave me. The other one that since we're sort of on this topic, that I think was just insanely valuable, and I think you can apply this to your kids, you can apply it to your business, is I was not told no a lot. Like my parents they were quite strict and they had a lot of beliefs and, there's right and wrong. But when it came to doing business and when it came to going outside and playing and trying things and experimenting, they didn't try to protect me. They didn't say, no, you can't do that. No, that may not work, or be careful. I didn't get a lot of that. And as a result, I was able to try stuff and I screwed up a lot of stuff. I failed a lot. I got hurt. But that's where all the knowledge gain comes from. That's where all the pain leads to seeking out and doing what you need to know and doing all the hard work. You don't have the pain, you don't do any of the other stuff. And so massive gift that's given.
That's amazing. And with your dad being an artist, I'm just making an assumption here, but he's a person that's not afraid to experiment, to not play by the rules, to think outside the box. And that's so applicable to an entrepreneur because failure is part of the way the world works. It's not bad. One of my problems with formal education, especially public education and even university, is that they train people to avoid failure. They're training you to be risk adverse. You know what I'm saying? Like you're punished if you fail, but you grow and you learn through the pain. Like you said, I talk all the time about walking through the fire, staying in the pain, even when it's hard, because that's where the growth happens. So that's incredible. And today your business has 50 crews. I mean, that's a lot of lawn work. I mean, that's insane. So it's doing many millions, over 100 employees. Clients.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
A lot of moving parts, a lot of transactions.
So you have a full leadership team now. You have a fully built out giant company. You're probably not in there day to day, maybe, but did you think that would happen when you were the 14-year-old? That's crazy.
Oh, heavens no. No. I had,
So,
it's funny. I went back and found all my goals recently. Well, my wife was out of town about a week or two, and I was cleaning up a week or two ago, and I was cleaning up some stuff, and I found my goals from 20 years ago. And this is pre-married, this is pre-degree, finishing degree, all these kind of things. And I had listed them out in every possible area of my life. I had like 8 goals for every area of my life. And I had wanted things like this. They were big long-term goals, and it's amazing that I've hit the majority of them. But remembering where I was back then, I wanted these things. I knew, but I had no idea how I would get there. And I remember, even rewind 10, 12 years ago, you see the vision, you read the books, and you see other people doing it. You're like, but my gosh, the scale of what they're doing is so big, you can't really imagine. It's kind of like trying to imagine what $1 trillion is. It's impossible.
right.
But it's almost impossible to imagine having 1 or 200 employees, having thousands and thousands of clients, having so many moving parts. You can't get your head around it because it's too big. And it's like everything in life, like losing weight or whatever it is. It's about the incremental steps. And then one day you do the right things day in and day out every day. And one day you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we've come this far. I can't believe I've made it here. That's really what the experience has been like for me. But I wanted it, but had no idea how to get there.
Well, and people get stuck on how. They don't take action. And you actually said you found your goals, which is funny because that means you actually had written goals. Hello, people. Write them down. Make it. Look, and the other thing is, I love the quote, if you just work your butt off for enough decades, eventually you become an overnight success, right?
Love that.
I love that. I don't even know where that came from, but it's so true. And it's just good. So let me ask you a couple questions about business because I want to provide nuggets to people who are struggling. Maybe they haven't written their goals down. They've been stuck. They can't even imagine doing what you've done. Why do people get stuck, in your opinion? What aren't they understanding to get the business they want, and what should they do?
Wow. There's a lot to that one. So why they get stuck, I often feel is, well, I can go different directions here. I think one of the biggest ones is knowledge. Our success is based on what we've learned, what we know, what we've experienced that has led to some level of knowledge gain or ability. So at the end of the day, the difference between me and someone else, or you and someone else, or me and you, it's just based on what we've experienced and we've learned. The faster we can learn, the faster we can learn from others, the faster we can gain wisdom because, through others where we don't have to actually experience that thing, the faster we're going to get to where we want to go because we're going to know what to do, what not to do. So that's one thing. A lot of people get stuck because you might know your skill, and that's enough to get you started in business. It's enough to mow lawns, it's enough to clean carpet, it's enough to do whatever. But now you have to reinvent yourself and become the next version of you, the guy that now knows how to manage 3 employees. And then eventually you have to become the next version of you, which is the guy that knows how to manage a leadership team, and the leadership team manages the rest of the company. And that's just one piece. The other piece is you got to learn about finance. You got to learn about marketing. So the 2 biggest problems I see across the board with the majority of companies that are hitting plateaus and are stuck is they are either struggling for revenue or they're struggling for employees. There's other issues, but those are always the big ones. If you say, I have no marketing problems, marketing's easy, which is kind of how I feel. Well, that means then your constraint is probably employees. Whereas if you say that, well, the problem is I can't get any jobs, I've got all this capacity, I don't know how to get enough work. Well, then that means your bottleneck is marketing. You probably have a knowledge issue on the side of marketing. And as you grow marketing, you have an employee problem. And then as you figure out how to get more employees, now you have a marketing problem. I don't know if that makes sense, but you're constantly this battle going back and forth of growing a company is about building the team to do the work and bringing enough work.
Yeah,
for the team.
absolutely.
So as you grow one side of the business, now the other side of the business breaks, and you've got to constantly be keeping those things in balance. And eventually, to keep the thing moving and moving fast, you have to figure out how to predict the future revenue that's going to come in so you can staff and train accordingly.
Right.
And so keeping all of that in balance, and that's getting maybe a bit too complicated here, but that's an example of where a lot of companies bump into roadblocks or get stuck or hit plateaus is because something in the business broke. And it could happen at 150,000 or it could happen at 15 million. Something broke, and it's generally around growing revenue or growing employees.
Totally agree. I always looked at it as the oscillation between scale and what I call the ability to service. Like, you need humans and they got to be good and they have to do the stuff right, and you can't find enough humans. And then if you're overstaffed, then you don't have the scale. There's this balancing act, and each new level you unlock requires, I love the way you put this, a new version of you, the next level version of you. And if you do not overcome the knowledge issue, like you said, and the execution issue, which we'll talk about that in a second, then you can't level up. It's like a video game. You can't level up and you just get stuck and it's over, I think that's very simply put, really. I think it's awesome. But the only thing I wanted to ask you about was the execution side. So knowledge is power. I have a small business boot camp. I help people. You have some things that you help people with, the Lawn Care Millionaire. But people don't do it. They don't take the action. So we can give them all these, systems and tools and techniques and knowledge and information and wisdom. Sometimes people don't do it. Is that even fixable? I mean, I don't know if it is. What do you think?
So I theorize that it is fixable, but I do agree with you. I think there's a real challenge, and I think there's a real challenge where maybe you could divide people and all of us into different categories. You've got the group where they just aren't seeking data and facts and they're not learning. You've got that. And then you've got the group that loves to seek facts and data and learn, but they don't apply it.
They're not doing.
Find that busyness of figuring it out, learning it almost feels like you're making progress where you're growing your brain power, but you're not actually taking a single step forward because you're not implementing. Implement is where all the magic's at. And that is the more difficult area to get, I think, many to take. That's one of the biggest struggles in the coaching stuff that I do, is getting people to take that step and actually do. The reason I'm a little optimistic that you can get people to do it, however, if you look at the numbers, only about 9% of companies in the lawn care industry, I don't know what it is, and say carpet cleaning and some of the cleaning businesses, will ever reach $1 million in revenue. So to me, that tells me that many, one, won't gain the knowledge, and then many also won't do the work because so many businesses are so small. However, I'm optimistic that we could really pull that number up over time, and a lot more individuals in the industry can do a lot more revenue. I think it's through getting involved in coaching programs, mentoring programs, mastermind type groups, because what I believe happens is when you get involved in those groups and you have to put money on the line, you now surround yourself with really interesting people that are doing things, and it sort of creates social pressure on you. In addition, you see the success others are having, because a lot of us in our regular friendships probably don't get to spend a ton of time with other entrepreneurs. Maybe they're more individuals that are working at companies and such. And by being around somebody that's constantly, as an entrepreneur, moving the ball forward, and you're seeing them create success in their companies and in their life, that encourages you to take the steps, hearing the language that you're using. So I'm optimistic that if surrounded with the right, it's that saying, you'll become the 5 people you hang around. I believe that.
I was about to say that. Okay, you stole my thunder. Yeah, Jim Rohn says that.
But it's so good. I mean,
it's so good.
I'm optimistic that if you will spend the money and get involved at that level, and then when you get involved, actually participate, I think that you will rewire your brain, you'll rewire your behaviors, and you'll reinvent yourself. I totally believe it.
Dude, I'm so virtually high-fiving you right now. Like, I just want to fist pump. Like, it's so motivating what we're talking about. And you have to take responsibility for the people in your life that are speaking into your life, speaking negativity in your life. A lot of people get voices, quote unquote, in our lives and in our businesses that are not qualified to speak to those things. And, you have your drunk uncle at the family reunion and he tells you your business is stupid and you should go back to college and do this and that. You don't need that. That crap is going to kill you. You gotta surround yourself with people that are doers. You have to learn the knowledge, but then constantly be around people who are out working you, who are out setting goals bigger than yours, who you feel that social pressure, like you said. It is a powerful, powerful thing. So I love the optimism. I think that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
If I could, I want to add one more thing. I think you also want to seek out individuals that are doing different things than you're doing, or maybe have bigger businesses than you. So you don't necessarily have to learn from somebody or surround yourself with someone that does not have a bigger business than you have. But you want to surround yourself with somebody that's doing different things, or is in a different place, or has a different twist. It's great to be around people very similar to you, but at the same time, you want to be around that person that's going to stretch you, that's ahead of you in some way. So, for example, a lot of the negativity often will come from somebody that maybe is running a 15,000. This has nothing to do with the revenue. I'm just saying maybe you're running $1 million business and you're plateauing and you're getting all your advice from an individual running a $15,000 a year business. They don't even understand yet the pain that you're dealing with. They don't understand the challenges. They don't understand the place that your business is at. So I'd also add, be hyper aware of who you're learning from and surrounding yourself with. Are they down the road ahead of you in some certain area? Because that will get you there even faster.
Yeah, we have to. You got to constantly be reaching up. And, people that have achieved stuff, and even me, I like helping people. And I guarantee you do. Just listening to you, you have a teacher's heart. If we have a young guy come along to us and they're genuine and they're like, look, man, I want success. I want this to work. What do I do? And I give them a nugget and then they do it. And then they come back and say, I did it. Now what do I do? I'm ready to work with that person, And so you might be nervous or intimidated to approach someone in your hometown who's highly successful or whatever, but who cares? Do it anyway. I mean, you got to reach up and find these people sometimes. Not all of us are born into these types of social, situations with these highly successful people, right?
I think the majority of us are not. If I'm listening to a little bit of your story and I wasn't. It goes back to what I said in the beginning. The great blessing for me was that I just didn't have a perception I had to go get a job. But it took me quite some time until I had tremendous amount of pain and I realized I better learn marketing, because just understanding how to sell is not good enough. I need to learn how to bring leads to me. That was the thing that opened my eyes to, I was already doing some good things, but that opened my eyes to customer service. That opened my eyes to marketing. It opened my eyes to how to recruit and find employees. That one little lever and then hanging out with the right people really changed my world. And so probably like you, I didn't start out having the right friendships or successful entrepreneurial relatives that could tell me what to do. I didn't have any of that. I learned it through originally books, and I didn't really have podcasts or anything like that back then. It was books. And then I seeked out the people that were writing the books.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron.
Seminars. Yeah. And that's
iron sharpens iron. And, it's funny how, it's like, God just connects some of the dots. If you're taking action, it's, the harder you work, the luckier you get kind of thing.
Yep.
So you got to be in motion, people. You have to be out there doing stuff. It doesn't have to be perfect. But I think, to recap what Jonathan said, be a doer, not just a learner. A lot of people that even listen to podcasts like this think that they're growing because they're consuming content. And it's good I love to consume content, but you have to be putting this stuff in place. So ask yourself if you really do have a knowledge issue or if you have an action issue. If you know stuff and you're not doing it, come on, I'm calling you out. You know who you are. Get out there and get it done. How would you like to hang out with me for a whole week? I'm talking every single day for 7 days. Well, you can. You need to join my 7-day challenge. It's completely free. It's a ton of fun. Every single day, you get a special message with a short video from me firing you up to get rocking and kick your butt into gear for your business. Just send a text message, 7-day, to 44222. You got to spell it out, SEVENDAY. Text it to 44222, or you can find a link at automategrowsell.com. Let's shift gears a little bit. And before we wrap it up and talk about Service Autopilot, I'm not familiar with Service Autopilot. Really, I'm not. I know that it's a relatively large company. I know that it's successful. Why did you start it? How did you start it? Give us a nutshell view of what it is, what it does, all that stuff.
So Service Autopilot came out of, my passion, software at the end of the day. I've got my degree in it. That's where I've been living. I used to build systems for people. And my pain point was that how in the world do I manage all the leads, all the calls, all the to-dos, all the jobs, and keep everything organized and do the marketing? And how do I do all of that when the business becomes big? Because my businesses were getting bigger, or I had the dream of them getting bigger, and I just couldn't find a solution in the marketplace that I felt could adequately do what I was envisioning. And I found some interesting tools, but they tend to, they were in the $40,000, $50,000 range plus a monthly maintenance fee. And so they were really expensive, and they were way bigger than what I even need. So we felt there was this huge opportunity. And so the heart of our company was one where we wanted to build a technology system that could run your company. So in our mind, the dream comes true solution to the entrepreneur, to the business owner, is not to use 5 or 6 different tools. It's to use one tool where all the data is tied together, everything's connected, and they don't have to keep switching systems. And so that's the platform or the system that we wanted to build. And it's taken a very long time. We still have a long ways to go. And so we started back in May of 2009, launched a very, very, very simple solution in November of 2009. And that's what we're doing. So we have a full business system to run your company.
Well, that's awesome. I love that you launched your minimum viable product 6 months after, getting started. Yes. You put it out there, you got feedback. And let me bring it down to ground level for maybe some people listening. A CRM is critical if you want any type of real business. You cannot scale a business using Excel or just QuickBooks Online. That's an accounting tool. A CRM is a series of tools, metrics, data, ways to engage your customers, follow up, automation, your employee stuff, your scheduling, your dispatching. This is mega, mega epically super valuable, awesome stuff. That's what your product does, correct, Jonathan?
Yeah, we do everything from, just as you said, your scheduling. We do a lot of marketing. We keep up with all your time tracking. We have full mobile apps on iPhone or Apple Android apps that track all your time, keep up with everything, do invoicing, charge credit cards. It's the full business system. We integrate back into QuickBooks. Pretty much imagine whatever it takes to get a lead all the way through invoicing that lead. We take care of that whole life cycle, that entire process.
That's awesome.
We do it all inside one system.
And that is why CRM is so important. And you can't sell a business that's not nice and neat and tight and you have your data and your books are in order. But I totally get it when you're really small and you don't want to come home after a long day and stay up till 2 a.m., doing paperwork or preparing some sort of an email blast to your old customers. It's a grind and it takes a toll on you. And systems like this, save you tremendous amounts of time. So here's the next question. Someone's using technology to save themselves time. They want to scale their business and they have a marketing problem, right? So pre-interview, we talked about doing 5 rounds and things, right? And I want to walk through, I call it the customer life cycle, and we'll tie it into how your CRM handles these things. But let's say that if someone's out hustling, they do 5 rounds, they're marketing to the neighbors of one of their current customers, which is an incredibly awesome, epic way to grow your business. They do that.
I will second you on that. It is huge. And I am just mystified why more people don't do that because it works so well.
Yeah, or people will do it, but they don't do enough of it to even have an accurate sample size to even know if it works for them.
That's a great point.
And it will work for them, by the way, just as a caveat. People do direct mail with Send Jim, my software thing, and they'll send out like 36 cards, and then they'll email us and say, I didn't get any calls on my cards. And I'll say, well, let me pull up your account. And then you say, come on, man, you need to send out 36,000 cards. Like, think bigger. Come on, people. Anyway,
that's a pretty small sample size there.
and that's a real number. I wasn't being facetious. That literally happened. And I just kind of slowly pulled the phone from my ear and looked at it and then kind of put it back to my ear like, what? Anyway, so I digress. So the phone call's generated and they're logged into Service Autopilot. This is why it gets powerful. Okay. Now we're going to capture that data. Boom. Someone called. How did you hear about us? Oh, it was from a 5-round campaign. Awesome. Are you you're a new customer? They put it in. And then this is kind of the beginning of what I call the customer life cycle. Walk us through those different steps and how Service Autopilot plays a role.
Okay. So let's say that, just to rewind slightly. So the 5-round goes out on the door. An individual reads the 5-round. They either go to the web, their mobile app, a mobile phone, not an app in this case, to the website on their computer, and they fill out a form. They request more information. That's one scenario that automatically comes into Service Autopilot and notifies the right individuals to take action. Or maybe they pick up the phone, they call. That gets automatically logged into Service Autopilot as a call. And then as soon as that happens, every company has a different system or process, but I'll give you one hypothetical process. So Service Autopilot comes in as a call. The individual then can quote the job right over the phone using our estimating system with price matrices and such that automatically, based on number of rooms or square footage or a number of different factors, will automatically figure out the price. So you ask a couple questions, it automatically figures out the price, and an estimate can automatically go out to the client right there over the phone if you don't close them on the phone.
That's
you do
awesome.
Close them on the phone, then the system, of course, it tracks the source. How'd they hear about you? 5-round. We have marketing reports that will tell you how that's performing in conversion ratio and who's terminating in what areas and all kinds of marketing stuff. That's critically important. So we track that. And then once that client or that individual says, yeah, I'd love to become a client, I'd like to work with you, when can you take care of my home, or whatever the work is, the system will help you figure out what day to book them, when to put them in the system, when to get them on the schedule. If you're accepting a credit card, you can take the credit card completely secure. It'll automatically validate the credit card before it even saves it, so that you're certain they already have the money to pay for it. And then the system can automatically follow up with them after you've scheduled them inside the system. And it just goes from there. And then eventually, whoever the technician is will get that work on his device. It'll track all of his job time. It'll job cost everything. It'll eventually figure out how it's supposed to be invoiced. It'll automatically invoice it. If it's supposed to be charged to a card, it automatically charges it to a card. And it just keeps going. And then later down the stream, you can do upsells, and it just keeps going.
Right. And you can follow up and you can do all this stuff. And I want the listeners to contrast what you just laid out, okay, against the guy wearing the wife beater who writes down the address on the back of a sticky note and then goes and does an estimate and drives there. And then, maybe they call back, maybe they don't, but he forgets, doesn't even follow up anyway, right? Because there's no email automation. And then if they do hire him, then he goes and does it, and then he loses the check kind of like in the seat of his car, and then he forgets even look, I'm being silly, but that is kind of one version, the chaos version. And what software can do when you implement it correctly is it brings peace and stability and standardization to the way that you do your business. And when you have that, at that point, not before, but when that exists at a minimum level, then you can scale, right? Then you can pour gasoline in the tank, right?
That is 100% true. One of the things that I feel like we get a little frustrated with and we want to help our members with, or help others that maybe are trying to consider the technology. And this isn't unique to just our solution. It's that we have a lot of clients that do smaller amounts of money, but we have clients that do huge amounts of money. And we have clients that are not super profitable. We have insanely profitable companies, just mind-bogglingly successful clients. Where I'm going with this is one of the things that we feel like we need to keep repeating, and it's just really, really valuable. I have to remind myself of this too, is no matter what scale you're at, the way you get to the next level is by using the systems and the tools and the procedures the bigger companies are using. You don't grow your business on Excel or in QuickBooks to $2 million and then say, now that I'm at $2 million, I can afford to spend $100 a month on a good technology system. What you do is you spend $100 on a good technology system so that you have efficiencies and that you have great customer service and that you don't forget to build jobs or do jobs. And that's how you become the big company. And I think that's just absolutely critical. You want to seek out what are the best companies using, what are the best companies doing, what are their systems, what are their procedures, how are they marketing? You want to start doing that now. It's also the difference between the individual that grows their company to $1 million over 15 years and the guy that grows his company, or a gal that grows her company to $1 million in 4 years. Right. Or 3 years. It's all about the systems procedures, both in technology and then the systems and procedures that are implemented inside your company.
So
that's
true.
The magic sauce. And so the sooner you get to the place that you're doing that type of stuff, the faster you'll get to be the kind of company you want. And then I'll add one more thing. What we have absolutely learned over the years now, through coaching, through software, I've met so many individuals in the industry. A lot of people don't make a lot of money. Like, they're making a little bit more than they'd make if they went and got a job. But there are also a lot of people that make insane money, like taking home 7 figures a year out of these businesses, not taking home 7 figures a year and putting it in their personal bank accounts. The difference there is technology, and it's systems and automations. And clearly it all started with marketing. And so there's several things going on here. One, if you want to get big, you need the right tools. And then the next one is, if you want to be really profitable, you have to know what marketing works, who the best clients are, what the best geographical areas are to target, which jobs generate you the most revenue, what you shouldn't do, who the best employees are, who the not so great employees are. You have to know all those you have to be able to do that analysis. And when you can do it, you can create a pretty awesome company. And that's how you actually make a lot of money, which is the entire point of business. The entire point of business is to make money and generate revenue. There's a lot of other great things you can do as well. But if you're going to be in the game of business, you might as well do it right. You might as well go a little bit bigger. And so applying the right tools is the secret sauce.
That was people need to rewind and listen to that. You just gave some seriously high level, like, people could pay money to hear what you just said. And honestly, it was very, very, very good. You said a lot of stuff. One thing I want to point out is, Why is it people have no problem spending 15 grand on a piece of equipment, but they won't spend like $100 for like some software that'll change their whole life? Like, how does that
This is the
work?
conversation we have all the time. It's because the truck and the piece of equipment are cool. So I use a lawn care example. I've lived in the cleaning industry for years and years, so I guess I could come up with those examples too. But I don't know if you've ever seen like there's a thing called an aerator, and it'll pull these little plugs of dirt out of your ground, and it basically gets more oxygen down the root system. A guy will sell a job for $100, and he'll go buy a $6,000 aerator to do his $100 job. He could have went and rented it for $40 because the equipment is cool and it's fun. It's like just go to the biggest trade show in the industry, GIE. It's massive. Everybody just loves looking at the equipment. I totally get it. But the thing is, the equipment does nothing to make you. I mean, yes, it sort of makes you money, but at the end of the day, it's one of the smallest factors in the company in terms of making you money.
Definitely. Buying it at capital expense. It's totally sexy. And I get it because I did it too. In fact, I gave a speech at a convention a few weeks back, and one of my stories was how I spent $6,000 on this thing, and I thought it was so awesome. And then only 3 weeks later did I realize my phone call wasn't even ringing, so I felt like an idiot. But anyway, a capital expense, when you buy equipment, you do that to either increase efficiency or make your margin gap bigger. Like, you do it as a strategic thing. Now, you have equipment you have to do the job, but chances are you can use, basic equipment in the beginning on the cheap. You don't need the big fancy stuff. I mean, once you're overwhelmed with work, if you can place $15K in a piece of equipment that, speeds up efficiency and raises your margins and all that, that makes sense. That's just you moving dollars around to harvest more later. But the little guys aren't doing that. They're taking all of their money. Actually, they're taking debt because they don't even have 15K, and they're buying this awesome thing so they can put it in their driveway so their neighbors think, wow, he's actually doing really good, right? It's an ego-based thing. It's short-term thinking. It'll choke your business to death. Don't do it. Invest in education. Rant over. That was really good stuff. Is there any, closing words of wisdom, Jonathan, you have that you could just change someone's life before we go?
I really believe that business is really challenging and it is difficult. However, there does come a point, and you really put me on the spot here. I wish I was more prepared, but there does come this point where, and you can't possibly, I don't even know what I don't know. I'm playing such a small game compared to so many other people out there and so many other companies. But you just don't know what you don't know until you experience some things. But there really is truly this moment in time where you realize that if I'm tracking the right things, I'm setting the right goals, I'm breaking my goals down into the right action steps, and I'm figuring out for that goal what my outcome is. So maybe it is that I want to add 200 more clients next year. Okay, that's the goal. Now, what is the outcome? What are the 3 things that we're going to experience and see manifest themselves when we achieve that goal? What's the outcome? Okay, so you figure that out, and then you back into that thing and say, okay, if we want to sell 200 clients, looking at our reports, we have a 52%, let's just go 50% conversion ratio. That means I have to bring in 400 leads. If I need 400 leads, that means if from a marketing standpoint, if I get, I'll just use an easy number, a 1% conversion, don't necessarily go with that, but a 1% conversion, that tells me how many marketing pieces to go out. If that many marketing pieces goes out and I'm going to get all those calls across X number of weeks, then how many people do I need to answer those calls? And you can back into this. Most of business becomes a game of math and thinking through it. Okay, what do we want as the outcome? What does success look like? Let's break it down. Every day, did the right number of pieces go out the door? Every day, did we make the right number of phone calls? Every day, did we do this? Did we do that? Because we had set some metrics that if we did this, this, and this, then we would get our 200 clients at the end of the day. And then every day you track those metrics. Every day you say, did we do what we were accountable for, that we as a team agreed to? Did I make the phone calls I promised? Did you send out the marketing pieces you promised? Yep. And amazingly, when that kind of stuff happens, you get the end result you want. The problem is that it takes all of us quite some time to figure out that it's sort of that simple. And again, I'm oversimplifying it. But we build these multi-million-dollar companies and we struggle and we say that there's the competition is underpricing and there are no good employees left in the entire world. It's an impossibility to find good people. And we have all these excuses. And then at the end, and then as we become a little smarter, we say, you know what? There are some pretty awesome people out there. The problem is I'm not going to the apartment complexes. I'm not going to check cashing stores. I'm not going to this place. I'm not networking with my vendors. I'm not giving away cash bonuses for referrals. And if we just did consistently a little bit every day of those things, magically there would now be some great employees that actually do live inside the United States that we can hire.
I know. It's when there's pain and it's not working, we like to externalize things. The problem could never be us, right?
Right.
The real secret here is that it's almost always us.
It's always me.
That's right. And when you live that, it's
always us. We all do it. And no matter how far down the road we are or how many things we've already worked through in our lives and tried to clean up some of the junk in our lives, there's still something else we've got to work on. There's some other crazy head stuff that we reintroduce into our business as an excuse, and we're all battling it. And so that'd be my nugget. The sooner you can get to the place where you realize that if I were to figure out what I want and what success looks like, and if I were to break that down and say, here's what I need to do every day, and then do it every day, magical things will happen.
Yeah. Well, even in our pre-interview, Jonathan, I talked to you and I'm like, okay, what's the deal? How big is your thing? And this is what I thought. And you clarified a couple things. But one of the things we talked about was how the way you win at business is by doing the fundamentals really well. And in a way, running a successful company it should be boring. And if your life is a roller coaster of chaos, you're doing it wrong. And in the beginning, it's okay if it's like that for a season while you get things in place. But the more you start to figure this stuff out and they bring the right team in, you have the right daily behaviors, it's not that sexy to run a big successful business. But that's good, right? I mean, do you see it that way?
I do. And I'll give you another example. So I read about 80 or 90 books a year. And at this point, I do try to take something from every book or if I listen to something. However, at this point, I don't really need that many more ideas. What I need is to stay fresh and energized and motivated. And I do need some new little ideas. And I'm constantly trying to expand my horizons, my thinking and think bigger. But where I'm going with that is for most of us, we don't really need too many new ideas, at least not yet. We just need to implement the few that are working. And then once they start, or the few that we've already learned, and then once they start working, we need to go deeper with that idea. We need to test it. We need to try different things. And let me put an example to an idea. An idea could be the 5-arounds that we were talking earlier. That's a very sound strategy. Door hangers in the right markets can be very sound strategies. We don't need 20 other methods of marketing. We need 3 really well perfected. We're like, oh, that's working. Now, how can I get 10% more out of that thing? Oh, I got 10%. How can I get 10% more? Until you get to a place of diminishing returns and you still want more clients, you want to take more market share. Yes, then you might make sense to add in another marketing strategy, but we don't need 5, 10 marketing strategies. We need 3 that are working really, really well. And we need to really be good at those and then start layering in marketing strategies. And that's true across almost every part of the business.
I call it buffet style marketing because we do a little of this. We're going to sponsor a T-ball team. We're going to put a little sign at the school. And then we're going to do some flyers and let's just keep the flyers in our office. We're only going to do a few hundred. Then we'll forget about them for 4 years. And let's do a little of this. Hey, radio. That's the answer. Let's do a radio ad. And look, I did that. I lived it. I have huge compassion. I have a heart to teach and help. Guys, make your business more boring. Go deep on something, not wide, like Jonathan said. Dude, you have way over delivered on what I would have expected out of this. You have some serious skills, lots of knowledge. People are going to love this. I appreciate you coming on. I hope we can stay in touch as well with some other future events that we have that are very exciting late this fall.
Do it.
We'll stay in touch. And until we talk again, my friend, take care.
Thank you, Josh. Enjoyed it.
Hey, thanks for hanging out, friends. And from all of us here at the Quick Talk Podcast team, we hope you loved today's show. We hope that you were inspired to become a doer and not just a listener. Apply what you've heard today in your own business and watch things change for the better. Lastly, remember that all the money in the world can't save your soul. Seek first the kingdom of God, my friends. We'll see you next time.
For more information about the Quick Talk Podcast or Joshua's other businesses, visit our website, quicktalkpodcast.com. Have a blessed day.